Welcome back to Honesty Talk. Today we are discussing a hot topic. Is divorce ever the right option?
That addition of ever is an interesting distinction in that question.
Would you like to elaborate on that, LaYinka?
Because then it brings the question that are there times that we should, like, for me, what I'm hearing is is divorce ever, so if someone has a situation, they're unhappy in their marriage or they're going through things in their marriage, is that good enough to decide that you want to leave that marriage? That's what I hear when I hear you say ever. So if you had just said, is divorce the right option? It's like, okay, yay, no. So but is it ever? It's like, ooh.
That's digging deeper, right?
Yeah, well,
maybe there was an intention behind you adding that word. It's something that a lot of sisters speak about. It's a dilemma that many sisters encounter. Is divorce the right option? Obviously, if you're asking yourself that question, you're in a marriage that you are unhappy with. Yeah. Divorce in Islam, as we know, is permissible. And you also have the fact that we know that the shaitan is always trying to split a man and his wife. It's not something that Allah loves. However, He has made it permissible for us. Now, a sister is unhappy in her marriage. She has children. Many sisters sacrifice their happiness for the sake of the children. I can see you smiling there.
Yes.
Okay.
Because I know
many.
Yes.
Many.
Yeah.
Is that sacrifice one that's good to make? You see, on the one hand, I get it. I get the importance of not just thinking about yourself and your own needs, but the needs of everyone that's involved in this situation. At the same time, by deciding to stay, what are the children seeing in their mum, who is getting depressed, is getting more and more depressed, more bitter as time goes on? What lessons are they taking from that unconsciously that they may take into their own marriages in the future? Is divorce the right option, Sumayah?
It's the golden question.
It is indeed.
It's the hardest question. There's so many things that are weighing on the decision. Like it is the base, and it's going to impact your life, your children's lives, everything is going to happen. And just like you're saying, the pressure is coming from the outside. The advice is, don't be selfish, take one for the team, stick it out. It can't be that bad. You're both good people. All of this is coming in from people who genuinely care and want the best, and they think that dissolving this current family unit is the worst possible thing you could do. And a lot of times the well-being of the mother, who's really going to be the staple, she's going to be the person who's going to hold everything up, and probably is already, if we gotten to this point, she is being compromised. She's being compromised for the sake of keeping the unit together. But just like you're saying, the question is that the best possible thing? Is a mom who's unwell going to be good for her children? Is staying in the marriage ultimately poisoning the home environment more than leaving? And this is a personal decision, and it's something that has to be weighed and looked at. And I think more weight needs to be given to the well-being of the mother as a person, because there's so much, the cultural pressure and other people's input and the taboos and all these other things come before her well-being as a human being.
Yes, and that's just the way that things are and the way that things are approached in regards to women, full stop.
Yes.
She's right there at the bottom of the pile. Her needs, her emotions, her feelings, her state of mental health, right there at the bottom.
And then the moment she decides to stand up and say
actually,
something, do you know what, I'm unhappy in this marriage, well, it makes her feel like she has no right to do that. Like,
because she has children.
Put everyone else first. It's not about you anyway.
Yeah, what are you talking about?
It's not about you. It's about the kids. You're married, you've had kids. So the moment you've had kids, it's no longer just about you. And it's true. The moment we have children, it's the family unit now has a different dynamic, and there are different things to consider when you're thinking about, if you're thinking about divorce and, you know, ending the marriage. The topic is, and the reason why I was smiling, because as someone who's been through a divorce, I can identify with deciding to make that choice, because no one made me. It was a choice, right? And also coming from a background where my mother stayed for us and seeing how that played out and having conversations with her about this, like, why did you choose to do that? And seeing the sacrifice that was necessary for her. And I do honor her for making that choice, because I know that if it weren't for us, she would have maybe decided differently, you know? And that's a big call to make for a woman, to say, do you know what, I'm gonna lay myself, my happiness, my whatever on the line and do it for my kids. And sometimes the kids don't even appreciate it, they don't see it, they don't and that hurts the mother in the long run.
Oh yes.
Because I did everything for you. Yeah. And then you turn around and...
But that leads me to a point, LaYinka, that, you know, one day they're gonna fly the nest.
Yeah, it's true.
That's reality. One day they're gonna fly the nest and make their own nest. And so, I don't know, sometimes I think, you know, these women who decide to sacrifice, and I'm not going to knock their choice, because I think everyone has to evaluate their own situation. Yeah. Those that choose to make that sacrifice and it's not appreciated by their children, and then they're alone, and they've gone through all of this unhappiness, that's hard. That's really, really hard. You know, I rate these women. I rate them.
Same, because it does take a level of strength and courage to decide that that's what you are going to do for yourself and your children.
The older generation, I feel it was much easier for them to make that decision, because they came from a time where, well, first of all, divorce was frowned upon, but also they were more patient. I don't know, they were more patient, or they had no other option for you know, financial reasons, and so on, which makes me question whether, I mean, on the flip side, women of our generation, are they quick
to want
divorce because they are financially more independent, there are more options available to them?
You know, as you were talking and saying that, you know, it was easier for the older generation, it may have been easier, but it didn't come without its angst.
Oh yeah, absolutely, nothing does.
So yeah, it might have been easier and whatnot, but at what cost, really? Because these women do live with the pain of what they had to go through.
You know what I see with them? You know what I see with them? They go through that, yet in their old age, you know what they're happy about? They're happy that they have their kids.
Yeah.
Yes, they sacrificed. They went through decades of unhappiness. They went through sometimes even abuse. In their old age, they're content because their kids are with them.
What were you going to say, Sumayah?
What you said about the whole, the reason why I'm choosing to stay is because I'm doing it for the kids. I think that, and I'm not talking about individuals in particular. I'm not talking about a particular person. I'm just saying that sometimes I think can be a cover for the other things that on a personal level you're dealing with. So externally, it's socially acceptable for me to say I'm being responsible and staying because I want to create an environment for my kids. But beneath that, I think, and this is, like you were saying, it was socially expected for people back then. They didn't really have a choice. And also it was the done thing to stay. To leave would have been a bigger step. Like you're going against the grain in every way. But now, in these times, like you're saying, it's a lot easier, but also there are people who choose to stay in these times. And oftentimes the cited reason is because of the kids.
Yeah.
But I think with further examination, that could be one part of it. But with further examination, there are other things. There are many other things that factor into the decision. The kids are the one that's easy to say.
Yeah.
But under that, there is, how am I going to cope? How will I be able to financially manage if the dad cops out? How am I going to ever find someone else?
Will I be alone?
Will anyone want me with children?
my kids, yeah.
Will they treat my children like leftovers? Will there be a distinction between the stepchildren and the real children? Am I going to always have to be, fighting for them to feel included and wanted? And am I going to be traumatizing them by putting them with someone who doesn't actually want them? And it puts a rift between the mom and the children. There's so many factors. Yeah, there's so many factors.
I think, when it comes to marriages where abuse has taken place, yeah, we have people of knowledge that tell women, have sabr. Have sabr. You have children, they need both parents. That's another topic to be discussed.
It's another episode, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So you have that. And in that case, when a woman is being knocked about, when she's being psychologically traumatized on a daily basis, and it's affecting her physical, mental, spiritual health, for me, divorce is the option if that's not going to stop. Yeah? But what about when, for example, a couple is in a loveless marriage? They're both good people. They're both good people. They have fallen out of love, or something has happened that's just created a massive wedge. They've tried, they've done all that they can to improve the marriage, and it's just not happening. And yet they have a level of care and love, maybe not in love, but a level of care and love for each other. Is divorce the right option in that case?
It's a personal choice, but it sounds like yes. Like that's a rare model, I think. A lot of times when you see a marriage coming to the point where people are thinking about divorce, it's a hostile environment. And it's not usually amicable, and everybody's mature and they process their emotions.
I see difference.
Yeah.
Many of the cases that I know of, I see people who, maybe you're looking at it from the loveless marriage perspective, like they've grown to this point. But when I see divorce coming up, it's usually in a hostile setting. It's in a chaotic, hostile setting. Like things have erupted and now divorce looks like, let's just end this.
I see both. I
Yeah.
see both. I'm encountering
Perfect
both.
sex,
Yeah. I'm encountering sisters who are just empty. Their husbands are good men, but they're just empty and they crave connection. And they're really just running on empty, and I don't know how long they can continue like this for. So it's for them, I think sometimes that's a deeper predicament, because he's not abusing me. He's actually good to me. But But I'm potentially choosing, by staying, I'm potentially choosing a completely loveless and sometimes even sexless marriage. That is a predicament and a half.
Yeah.
And it's one that actually I'm finding more and more couples are encountering.
Yeah. And I think from the perspective of a woman, when it's the woman who's feeling like that, there's the challenge, because when a man feels like that, he can just go and get
Another wife.
And a woman doesn't have that option.
No.
And so she feels like she's stuck.
Yes.
Okay, I'm in a marriage where I'm not happy. Like I'm okay, but I know that I want more. Like I want to have feelings for this man. I will care for him. I'll take care of him. You know, I will do what I need to do because he's a good man and he deserves good treatment. So she'll give him good treatment. But that underlying love that she has, that connection with him, and she doesn't have that with him, she feels like it's either I stay and remain like this or I leave, because that is the woman's, those are her two choices. I mean, you could also say that she also has the choice to stay and do something else. So there is that choice also. So it's not just stay and remain down and in the dumps, but there, you know, it's one of the two of go or remain.
Yeah. I think when it impacts, when an unhappy marriage negatively impacts your health, and what I mean by that is, you know, on all fronts, and it's having that impact on a daily basis over a considerable amount of time, and you've exhausted all efforts to fix that marriage. Is it worth it? Is it really, really worth it?
There is so much that sisters battle with that though, because guilt and shame.
Yeah.
You know, especially from the outside environment, like he's a good man. He's not beating you down. What have you got to complain about?
That's right.
Like, why are you complaining, sis? There are so many sisters who would love to be married to him. You're like, what's your deal? Shut up and put up. He's good to you. You know, deal with it, accept it. Be grateful to Allah. You know, the narrative that is consistently thrown. So the sister feels that she has no other option but to stay. And so she remains, like there are sisters who will remain like that because I don't have anything really to complain about. And then there's the hadith of not smelling the fragrance of Jannah that is thrown to sisters in those situations. Like, you haven't got a reason to say that you want to divorce him, so you are entering dangerous water, sister.
But we have the stories of the companions where they came to Rasulullah and she said, you know, I'm just not happy. There was she didn't cite some egregious reason that he was abusing her to qualify as valid.
Yeah.
She didn't have to qualify it. That was it. That was it. And it goes back to the idea that, do we have to explain and justify as women having needs or boundaries or any of these things? It goes back to that again. Like, you are not in a position to talk or say or demand. You're not entitled. You're not. Why is that the case? Where on the side of a man, it's always that. And I see this also, what you were saying about sometimes people in positions of leadership or scholarship, when they're consulted on these matters, when it comes to the women, it is always to be patient.
Yeah. But
But if you flip the case, if you have the case of a man who's complaining about a wife who does A, B, C, or D, it's like, throw her out. Like, there's no,
straight up.
There are so many fish in the sea, throw her out. Brother, you don't need to be putting up with this. You don't need to be hearing this. And you really see like how it's biased in that way. And it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because our faith doesn't teach that. That's where the cultural stuff is seeping in. But it's really deeply frustrating, because if you identify as a person of faith and you're looking for answers from there, and this is all that you're hearing over and over again, that you should be accepting and happy and what's the matter with you, then you start to question your own sanity.
No, I agree with you. One thing I'm seeing, and I don't know if you'll both agree with me here, is that sisters who do end up making the choice to divorce, I'm seeing a lot of them taking off their hijab. They just, it's like they were struggling with the decision. they choose to divorce, and then they lose their deen.
Oh, we need a topic for that.
We need a topic for that. So, you sometimes I look at these sisters and I think, well, I get that you went through a really difficult time, but who was your practice for? Number one. And number two, is it better then for them to have stuck within the marriage? Because the most important thing is your deen.
Here's
to
the thing,
lose
though.
that.
It goes back to what we were saying in the first episode.
I like how you draw everything back to that one.
That
It
episode
really
is life,
keeping it
it's
real.
everything. But that episode, it goes back to what we were saying about the journey of self-discovery. So a sister's been through a marriage, and often in situations where I've seen sisters do that, there has been some level of maybe narcissism, abuse, or there's been angst. It's not just a case of, oh, I didn't love him anymore.
No.
So it's there's some kind of trauma or something, turmoil that's attached to that. And so in that, they want to find themselves after they've left this man. And then they go on that journey of separating themselves from the deen, because this, especially when the man was a practicing one.
Yes, they associate.
And so they associate the deen with this guy, and he hurt me, so let me just distance
Let me
myself
take a step back from the deen.
from that.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of what happens. But what you were saying about sisters, possibly, maybe it would have been better for them to have stayed, but then their deen in the marriage might not have been solid in the first place. There could have been a whole host of there are a whole host of reasons why, what could have been going on.
I think the key here is that if a woman, and we're not saying whether a woman should stay or go, because that is a very, very personal decision, and no one will know the full extent of the circumstances surrounding her need to even make that decision.
Yes.
But I guess the key here is that if she decides to stay in an unhappy marriage, whether it's abusive, whether it's loveless, or she decides to go, that she needs to, at that point, strengthen herself as a woman and strengthen her iman. Because both, leaving or going, require her to be powerful and strong to deal with what's going to come next. Yeah? I feel like this needs a part 2.
Oh, yeah. And more tea.
So we know it's a subjective choice. It's,
Yes.
it's a decision that each person needs to evaluate on their own. Final thoughts.
Just to respond to something that you said quickly, what you were saying about them wanting to find themselves after leaving the marriage and kind of shedding the faith. I've had this conversation with different people, and the feedback was that I have almost only known the religion through him imposing it on me. And I feel like I need to find my relationship with God independent of him. And sometimes that looks like starting the journey from scratch. If they're not coming from a foundational knowledge or practicing, they kind of rushed into this when they got married and in the zeal of practice. And so now they're starting again from scratch, and they're saying, I want to know God without a man telling me how to do this or that or how to dress, and I want it for me.
You can start that journey. You can start that journey from where you are.
I really feel
You
like
can, you can
yeah.
start that journey from where you are. There is no requirement to restart your journey of faith from a position of no salah, no hijab, no Muslim company. Doing all three, you're completely opening the door to shaitan.
Yeah, I think the
You can
dissociation
start where
part
you are.
Yeah.
is a big drive, that they
It
need
is
to dissociate.
it's the thing.
And
It's the
feeling
thing.
judged by the people that the company they used to keep, feeling judged and unaccepted by them. So now the company goes, and then your environment changes, and then you start to go. Yeah.
And to be honest, that thing of finding yourselves, I've found very few sisters find their way back.
Unless you started from where you were. When you start from where you are, it can become an even deeper, more meaningful relationship.
Yeah, so the topic of really, is divorce the right option? I think my take on it is to really look at your situation and have real, honest, earnest conversations with Allah.
Yeah.
Because He knows
Absolutely.
what lies ahead of you.
Istikhara.
Yes.
Istikhara is key.
Always.
Istikhara is key. And, you know, if you decide to stay or you decide to go and you have a fear of judgment from people, disregard that, because you know judgment comes, you know, judgment of people is because these people have not yet had their faces rubbed in the dirt.
Yeah.
That's why they're able to, that's why they're so easily able to judge.
And that's why I think, just my last thing on this is that whatever choice you do make Allah the focal point of your journey.
Yeah.
Not the man, but actually your relationship with Allah.
Not even the children.
Not even the children. Allah.
And Allah will guide.
He will.
He will guide to what's best. Sometimes that is divorce.
And sometimes it's
it's not. Sometimes that's staying.
Yes.
Okay, sisters, I know that the Facebook page is going to be flooded with comments. We want to hear what you have to say. We want to read what's going on, what your opinion is about this topic. Comment on the Facebook page, share the video far and wide. Is divorce the right option? See you over at the next episode, inshallah.
Accept that just as I am fallible, my kids are fallible, and to embrace and accept that and not expect perfection of them. Because it's easy as a parent to look at these mini Muslims and think they're mini adults.
I have put in so much effort with these kids since day one that, you know what, you are a Muslim, damn right.
I always saw my parents praying. I always heard my mom say, Allah never lets us down. Like, these things, like, they never leave you. I don't care where you go.
We question ourselves, we berate ourselves, you know, we criticize ourselves. I should have done this better, or why did I make this choice, and why did I take this decision?